Welcome to the Obstacle Dominator podcast, the show for athletes who want to become their best and inspire others in the process. Here we're going to dive deep into training tactics, race strategy, nutrition, mindset, and everything required to dominate the course and your life. Whether you're tackling your first race or already standing on podiums, this is where you can level up. There is always room for improvement, and it is time to push through those barriers and step it up a level, breaking both the physical and the mental walls to keep progressing. I'm your host, Matt Roberts, OCR athlete, coach, and guide to those committed to becoming healthier, happier, stronger, faster, to maximize their human potential now and always. I'll also be joined by the coaching team who are walking the walk, competing, staying current, and holding themselves to excellence. They are leading by example to inspire others to rise. We also bring on guest speakers who share real stories, real lessons, and proven methods that deliver results in performance, health, and mindset. Let us begin. All right, let's begin. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Having straight off to a busy start to the week. So yeah, it's good. Lots of moving parts and lots of training to be done. So
yeah, good stuff.
3 weeks out from a race.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we've jumped on the podcast together as well. I think back in July was the last time we recorded some episodes. We've actually got like a handful in the bank now, so we're going to release a bunch together. But what you and I are going to be doing over the coming weeks is doing a mini series, starting with the off season, which we're going to go over today, and then we'll lead that into actually planning the season. It's not that we do the off season, then we plan the season. We're doing both simultaneously. And the closer you get to the season, the more you refine the game plan. But we're not just going to look at that season, much like in this episode. We're not just going to look at the off season and just taking time off. We're actually going to reverse engineer that process, but then also get you to cast vision out maybe 3 or 5 years. And this is what we get to do with many of our guys, rather than just looking at the next year, look at maybe the next 5 years or the next 3 years, because actually the work that we do now is going to get us to the place that we want to be in a few years' time. But if we don't know where we want to be in a few years' time, actually we could delay our success and the results that we got. So we'll do off season, we'll then do planning the season, and then we'll actually look at prioritizing races in a set structure. And the reason for that is so that we can maximize the calendar year. And then also what we'll talk about is like how to be consistent as well, because a big thing we've seen over the years, even a challenge we face as the coaching team with our athletes, particularly the new guys that probably within the first 6 to 12 months, is actually getting them to prioritize the key races rather than doing such as like a trifecta weekend, or going to the OCR champs and doing a 3K race, then they're doing a standard race, and then they're doing sprint races, and it's just like the jam packing the weekend and getting some great results. But the question is, could you do better if actually you just prioritize one race? So we'll go into that as well. Anything else on that, Matt, you feel?
Yeah, so I know like the Spartan passes and the unbreakable passes and all that can be one of the things which gets people to want to get the most out of their investments. So yeah, it's like anything, if you buy it, you'll get a bit of a discount, but then that also on the flip side gets you to want to do more and more, which actually it's like in the people that I've worked with, it can be quite detrimental, because it's not just the race in itself, it's like the venues, like traveling to them, and some of them could be international, some of them could be local, but then there's a lot of travel time, broken routines, and then that all feeds into overall performance as well. So it's not just looking at a race and going, oh, I want to do this, but it's getting there. So yeah, there's quite a bit of stress involved as well, which can be quite detrimental. So yeah, we'll be talking about sort of considering those races and prioritizing to make sure that you can go in as well rested as well.
Yeah, and that leads nicely into where we're at with the off season and really how to go about it. I think the thing I'll start with is this period is so important that it will define your success of racing next year. Like if you really, really capitalize on this, you will have a great next year. And the reason for that is it could be a 4 or 6 month period where it's uninterrupted. If you choose it to be uninterrupted with OCR events and major races, and then when the season actually begins, things can get quite busy. And what Matt was saying was like lots of travel, like you've got to consider a lot of logistics and managing finances and just a whole bunch of things that we don't really take into account. And that's the thing that can be really tiring. Yes, the racing is tiring, but then also it's engaging with the community and getting there and making sure that you've nailed your nutrition and being on time. And we don't see these things as like contributing to the overall stress and load of the training on the weekend, but it is. So the more we add simplicity to the process and the more we prioritize 1 or 2 races, the more we can actually get out of it and feel better for it, and get better results in fact as well. So that's really where we're going to begin. And we like to begin with the end in mind. And actually, for many of our guys, they've moved into the off season. A few people have actually already done their season training period and are about to commence their off season training. So we want to reverse engineer the process. So even like looking forward to next year, like choosing a race where you know you're going to be done, not going, oh, I've had my last major race, but I'd quite like to travel to Sweden and do this, and then I'll go over to America and do this. It's like you have to be disciplined. Yeah, especially like Matt said with these pass holders, you can just have this tendency to go, well, I paid for it, so I may as well maximize it. And that's okay. Like we've all got different goals, but we'll talk about like the goal setting process in the planning phase as well, because you can prioritize certain races over other races. So we're not saying don't race. We're just trying to get you to optimize more so you can feel better, look better, and perform better as well. And there's been a handful of athletes over the years that we've coached. And I think the most detrimental thing we've seen, and let's correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, is people going for the Spartan Trifecta Shield. Like I can remember a handful of guys that for 2 years were in the best shape of their life, and then they're like, oh, this year I'm going to go and get the Trifecta Shield, which is pretty much a trifecta every single month, if not more. Some were doing more to go and get a shield. But what happened was body composition changed, energy plummeted, performance stats went down, and they were just running to the ground by the end of the year. So, I mean, this is the polar opposite of what we're suggesting and want people to do. We're not saying don't do the Trifecta Shield, but just manage it in a proper way. And we'll go on to that more with the planning. Right. So really what we want to do is really optimize the whole training period, begin with the end in mind being what is the goal 3 to 5 years from now, and then making sure that everything's in such a way now that we can consistently show up without reaching burnout, all right? Or injury is another one, and we'll do another one on injury because they're big showstoppers. Anything to add before we dive in, Matt?
No.
Okay. So this is just a suggestion, and already people will probably throw this out the window. But what I've done for the past 6 years of racing is taken a stint of time off after I race. So it could be a week, could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be 4 weeks. All right. But what we're suggesting is 2 to 4 weeks where you're not doing really any structured training as such, right? You're still moving your body, you're still looking after yourself, you're still getting to bed on time, you're still eating well, you're still managing your stress and whatever else. You're keeping up your health practices, but not to the extent that you may have been going into competition. So everything's more relaxed, and then you also don't need to worry about training intensely. Now, during this period, you can move, like you can take up some form of sport or whatever else, but the key ingredient is to reduce stress physically, but also mentally as well, because I've not only been physically exhausted at the end of a competitive season, mentally, I've also been very drained as well. So it's about decreasing the stress and decreasing the load from that. I remember probably about 2 years ago, maybe it was even 3 years ago, I took a full month off training. Now, clearly, in certain aspects, after taking a a month off, there's going to be regression in terms of certain aspects of fitness. And I don't know if we've recently talked about it on a podcast, but when we talk about the energy systems and how to train, we'll go into that in more depth. But you'd think that I would have taken drastic steps back. When it come back to doing the strength assessments, I actually increased the amount of pull-ups that I was doing. My dead hang actually increased as well. And there were some other stats that improved. So taking the time off was actually beneficial in that regard, because I didn't worry about training physically, mentally, and therefore when it come to doing these, I was actually more motivated and more invested into that. So yeah, it's not about taking time out to really decondition yourself. It's allowing yourself to be in for the long term. And what we mean by that is many years, all right? But if we're just thinking about the here and now and the year, then we're going to try and cram in as much training as possible. But this time of year is not the time to do that. That'll be closer to the events where you really want to sharpen the closer you get to that.
Yeah, it just adds a little bit more on that as well. So yeah, you might take like 2 to 4 weeks off, but you don't have to take that in one go. So you can split that across like a 2 or 3 month period. And what that will do is allow you to keep those energy systems that Matt was talking about still primed, but giving your nervous system enough of a reset where you can actually make the adaptations. So again, obviously you dropped a little bit of fitness, but that could have been also mitigated by having two weeks off, but split across a longer period. So, once you've built up another base, so you could maybe do a training phase, like 12-week training phase, and then take off another week. So there's different ways and means. And again, obviously within that, Matt wasn't just sat on his ass, scratching his butt or anything like that. Still moving, still eating well, still sleeping well. And you don't necessarily have to just, he was saying sort of try a new sport or do something that's fun. So you can go for like freedom runs, just take the watch off and just go for something that's really gentle, get out in nature and enjoy it. Or you can do some cross training, something that you don't normally do. So again, it's not just sitting around sort of still prioritizing on other areas that may have dropped off throughout the race season, but ultimately just like taking the stress away from structured training, because even as far as like runs going out and your heart rate could be higher, like that mentally stresses you out, especially with Garmin. Like, 7 minutes into a run and it's saying that you're unproductive or your performance condition is going down, people can get quite stressed out about that. So yeah, take off the watch and just go for something that's fun.
Yeah, really, really important. And this really is the ideal time for catching up on other aspects of life that may have been neglected in and around competition at various stages. And a big thing we advocate is balance across all aspects of life. The physical training is massively important to move the needle and get the performance that you want come race day. But if other aspects of life are out of whack, then you're not going to perform optimally. So if you've got stress at home, or you've not found time to prioritize yourself to take time out and have stillness, or if you've got a busy work period and there's stress there, like there's a whole multitude of factors that can really come into play. So it's the opportunity to really slow down and just really be and catch up on other matters. Things I like to do as well is you could even go away and do some like deep reflection, some inner work, go on a retreat of some kind. Yeah, because it's a free period where actually you do have more time on your hands. All right, so there's plenty of opportunities there, but this comes into the planning as well. Like there might be certain things you want to do. There might be a family holiday, because we see a lot of guys going on a family holiday, but they're there to relax, but then they're trying to cram in training, and then they're trying to chill with the family, and it's actually they get back from the holiday and they need another holiday. So what we're saying is, like, if we're going to take time off, take time off. If you're going to do some element of work, do the work. And this all comes down to the planning. And really, if we bring up like a big calendar, which we recommend as well, you can look at every single week of the year and be organized on it. so that you can maximize time off for rest, relaxation, fun, other aspects of life, and then training weeks and anything else that you want to have.
Yeah. Another one's celebrate. Like, for a lot of people, you'll have had a heavy training block, all the way through from possibly like January or even beyond that, and taking the time to reflect and celebrate the hard work that you've put in, maybe the successes that you've had. Okay. And that varies from person to person. It could be completing an obstacle course race without any penalties. Like, that's huge, like, because that shows that everything's all balanced within your training, and yeah, like, live in the moment. So definitely celebrate, because a lot of us are sort of goal orientated. It's like, okay, right, I've achieved this. What's next? What's next? What's next? And you're not giving yourself the time to see how far you've come. So yeah, like, relive the experiences. If you've just completed your first 5K, your first 10K, like, relive it, like, at the accomplishment that you've made. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Really, really important. Yes, it's a good time to reflect on the year and what's gone well, and what hasn't really gone to plan. And I was saying this to some guys at the weekend. It's like every experience we have, whether that's good or not so good, is an opportunity to grow and to learn from that and improve. So if you've just had a season that's not as you want it to be, that's okay. Did you grow? Did you improve? Yes. Okay. Well, where am I going to be in 12 months from now if I continue to be consistent and sharp in the way that I am? And every single race that I've done OCR, I've just made little refinements bit by bit by bit. I remember a time I couldn't even do the monkey bars. Yeah. So that made me want to focus on doing monkey bars. And then I couldn't do the multi rig. So then I focused on the multi rig. Then I realized my running wasn't very good. So then I focused on my running. So everything that's reflected back to us is just merely giving us the opportunity to address that area. And we can go into the mindset about that and belief systems, because sometimes people can have resistance to certain aspects of training. We've actually done a podcast on why don't we like to run, or something along the lines, but then it goes into all the external factors as well. And I regularly see people running on the street and they're like running at threshold pace every single run, and it's like, no wonder you don't enjoy running, because you're just hammering yourself every time you go out the door. I wouldn't enjoy that. Sometimes it's nice to go out and do a freedom run, like Matt said, or do an easier run in nature, or run in a different environment, or run with people. So yeah, reflecting is really, really important, because it allows us to understand where we're at right now based on lived experience. Okay, nothing is bad. Everything is just opportunity through experience to grow. But be proud. Yeah, that's the most important thing there. Cool. So once you've taken this period of time off, really the defining thing to determine when you actually get back into your training is going to be how physically primed you feel for it, but also how mentally primed. And that time that I took 4 weeks off, I had a very, very intense season. I think the season stretched from March all the way through till maybe November. Okay, so that's a very lengthy period to be doing competitive races. And then I decided to take a month off. But I didn't decide to do that up front. I took a week. How do I feel? Do I want to get back into training yet? Nope, not feeling ready. And that was more of a mental thing, and maybe a little bit of a physical thing. End of week 2 came. I was like, no, still not feeling it. Week 3, I was like, yeah, I'm starting to kind of feel the itch. I want to go back in training, but wasn't quite ready. So I'd done the 4th week, and by the end of the 4th week, I was like, yeah, I'm good to go. Like, I'm ready to get back in. Maybe that could stretch out to 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever you want. But really, the longer we need off is probably based on how intense we had the previous race season. So you won't necessarily need to take that extent of time off if you're optimizing what you're doing during the year. Because yet again, if I'd maximize that other 2 weeks, that's 2 weeks more of training that I could be doing. Yeah, so it's not always about going full throttle 100% all of the time with all of the training. Yeah, imagine doing the bare minimum for maximum results over 5 years versus going all out for 2 years and then ended up burning out and then taking a big period of time off and having a bunch of resistance around training. Who's the person that's going to gain more ground over the long term? And also another consideration, like I mentioned, is injury. Yeah, you could have one session that you just go two whole hog on, and there you go. You've done some damage to your hamstring or your calf or your foot or whatever that may be.
Another thing to touch on as well, that's it's going to be very much individual because yeah, like the time that Matt had the month off, like I look back for myself personally, and I'll probably only do like 2 to 3 big races a year, and I don't really need that amount of time off. So personally, generally after a week, 10 days without training, for me, I find it harder to get back into training. So this is where I have to split up my recoveries because on the flip side of it, I find it very challenging to get back to the gym. Still go because obviously that's through years of discipline. But especially if you are starting back out into your fitness journey, then yeah, it can be quite easy for that to be detrimental to you as well. So yeah, like you'll know yourself how you react to time off to training. And also one of the things that I do notice as well, when people have that recovery time, they'll try and go back in at the same intensity. My personal advice to anyone would be ease back into it for the first couple of sessions because you will find that your body will react to it. You'll be a little bit more sore. So, yeah, use those first couple of training sessions just to ease back in. And then from there, you'll be able to pick up the pace and the momentum really quickly. So, yeah, it is very much individual based. But, yeah, be in tune with yourself. Listen to how you feel, like both sort of mentally and within your body as well.
Yeah, really, really important points. Yeah, especially the building into it. So there's two ways that this can be done. So, firstly, and this is what we do more often than not, is when people have come back from their off-season chunk of time off. So directly after they finish competing, they take a 1 to 4 week, 2 to 4 week period of time off. We're going to go into baseline assessments. Now, like I mentioned, with this, there could be regression in certain aspects of your fitness. So, by doing these assessments, it's not like we're going for PBs. Obviously, that would be nice if you have breakthroughs like I did in certain aspects, but that's not what we're looking at or assessing. We're looking to see where you are right now at the start of the off season period. Another way to do it is to build a little bit back into training, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and then do assessments. But then you're not going to have the level of accuracy you would at the beginning of the off-season period because you're not only looking at that snapshot of that particular assessment. If you've done it successfully for the past 2, 3, 5 years, you've got all that data. And then what you can see over the past 3 to 5 years is the improvement. So although you're doing a snapshot assessment and you might not be at peak condition like you were a month or 6 weeks before that at the end of the competitive season, but if you look back 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, you're actually a lot higher than you were ever previously. So it's not about doing an assessment and hitting PBs. Like I said, it'd be great if you did. It's just a snapshot to understand where you're at, and then that data, that information will then construct the next building block. Obviously, in this period, we need to know what the goals are for the season, because the thing is, if you don't have an understanding of what the ultimate goal is for the year or 3 years, you kind of got these assessments, but then what are you actually working towards for one? And then what does the process actually look like? Because you can have a training program, but if the training program isn't so specific that you know paces or times or intensities to stick at, how can you develop that particular energy system that is going to make you faster or stronger or whatever it is? So you need to have the assessments as a baseline, but then also at the far end of that, you need to have the goal 3 years from now to work back from that, because it's not just about the year ahead. It's about who do you want to become, what do you want to achieve in the coming years, and then ultimately having more assessments along the way. And that could come in the form of a race being booked. at the end of the off-season period, maybe 4 weeks or 6 weeks out from actually going into your competitive season. Is there anything you want to add on that, Matt, before I move on to kind of what I'm doing with mine?
Yeah, so I mean, with assessments as well, it's like we're saying the word, but then some people may be like, "Well, what kind of assessments are we talking about?" So yeah, we can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, within OCR, for example, you're using different energy systems at different times, but also yeah, it's like things like your grip training, for example. That's going to be really important for some of the obstacles that you may face. So yeah, so some of the baseline assessments that we might use for our athletes will be a grip test assessment, and that will like have different components. So those are areas that we can be working on throughout the months ahead. Then we'll do potentially like a 5K assessment or a 10K, depending on what distances you're doing, and then lactate threshold tests as well. Yep, and then like for lower zone training, we can do what's called a MAF assessment, which is maximum aerobic fitness. But yeah, I don't know if you want to touch onto those more specifically, or if we just want to sort of touch on those another time, Matt.
yeah. I think we touch on those on when we talk about the energy systems and how to structure training in a following podcast. Yeah, because it's important. I think let's just go over the general structure for the time being, and then we'll get more granular as we go through this little mini series.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So this kind of leads us to really what we reflected on. So you would have had plenty of time to reflect during all of the period that we've just spoken about. And for me, my running needs continuous work. Like that really is my limitation. Not just the running or the form or whatever. It's actually being able to sustain a set pace cross country for longer than I can. So I need to be able to achieve faster paces at short distance. I then need to translate that into going further at the same pace. And there's numerous things that can be done on that, but ultimately that is my goal. So at the moment, my goal isn't to win a championship or win a race, although that would be nice. But really, if I improve my running, that would become reality. And that's by looking at my own data and the data of other people that are in the sport. Like if I can't hit certain numbers in training, how am I going to be able to hit them racing? And if I can't hit them racing or in training, then how am I going to get the results that I need? So we've got to be realistic as well with the goal, but having a main focus to focus on the off season is going to be really, really pivotal. First things first, we need to be consistent. So we need to make sure that that period of time, whether it's 4 months or 6 months, is as interrupted as possible. Now, it doesn't mean perfectly hitting all of your training sessions each and every week, but it does mean doing the best that you can by keeping the schedule as clear as possible. Or if it's not clear, you're actually prioritizing the training and making sure that you're hitting each key session to develop that particular area. So you're going to place a lot of emphasis on this. So for me, it's my running. So if I look at my off-season goal, I've got one race set for the 1st of March 2026, and that's a 5K road race. That's it. That's all I've got booked in my calendar as of yet. I'm looking at another 5K race for July 2026, which is a matter of months after that. But I haven't actually planned my full season yet. I've got ideas of what I want to do. Maybe I do Spartan Spanish National Series. I'm feeling really cool to go and do that because it could be fun. To be honest, I'm quite bored of doing the Spartan UK races. They don't excite me. So that's another aspect of it. Like, why am I going to go and force myself to do Spartan UK races when, yes, they'll be fun, but I've run around the same courses time and time again. It doesn't really excite me. So I'm choosing something that would excite me. Maybe I'll do some of the UK OCR races as well, because they're always typically quite different and they're more technical, more enjoyable, and often more competitive as well. And I need a different skill set to be able to compete at that. But yet again, all of this feeds into my running needing work. Spartan is a running game, so I need to be a better runner. and I know that I need to hit certain times in order to be a competitor. And the same for the UK OCR races as well. I know that I need to be faster to stay with the guys that are the fastest, but then also I need to improve my obstacle game, my technical obstacle game, versus it just being Spartan. But regardless of any of that, I know that I can refine that in a matter of weeks and months. Yeah, it's just about working on the technical ability. I've got the strength, and that's going to continue to improve in the off season. But the running for me is the area that needs work. So my goal for the off season is a 5K. Yeah, and to hit a PB in my 5K. And I know that if I can't achieve really a sub 16-minute 5K, then there's not really any point in me competing, to be quite honest. Yeah, I'll get some great results, but I'm not going to jam pack my schedule next year with OCR events if actually my time would be better prioritizing more running. So, but that's not to say that by the 1st of March I'm going to be achieving well below 16 minutes. That may be March 2027 that I get that. So it's also being realistic with your goals and not forming attachments or expectations to those in particular. The thing that we're focusing on here is self-improvement. And that's why we're asking you to really optimize the year, because I don't want to say like the less we do, but the more we prioritize and the more time we allow for training, yeah, but in a realistic way, the more we can optimize what we do, and therefore the more progress we can make without annihilating ourselves and feeling burned out. Okay. But if for whatever reason you don't achieve the goal that you want, it's okay. Did I make progress? Yes. Did I make as much progress as I wanted? No. But that's okay, because I'm still showing up. I'm still being consistent. And this can be a big failing for an athlete when they're like, well, I set this goal for myself and I missed it. But this can be a benefit of having a third party support, a coach, a community, because they can help you. They can give you their perspective. And it works both ways as well. If you set a goal that is so unrealistic and then you don't achieve it, how's that going to make you feel? You could potentially beat yourself up and think, well, what's the point of failing? I set this goal. But the first thing is, did you have an understanding of where you are exactly by doing assessments? If you didn't, well, how do you know that you can actually close the gap on where you are to where you want to be? You don't. So then to set a goal that is so big that you actually don't know how much of a gap you need to close is just not a smart move. So we need to assess, understand where you're at. You need to set the goal to see where you want to go. You need to have a look at the time frame to see if it's actually realistic. And even with that, we still don't even know if it's possible, because each individual is different. How I progress will be different to how Matt progresses and the next person. And really, it comes down to the training, the time, the consistency, the rest, the recovery, everything. And when you do things 80% right, you're going to yield a lot of results. And that's what we want to do. We want to make progress year in, year out. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be linear or this upward trajectory. There might be dips, but we're always endeavoring just to be better and better over time. And that's really the key. But on the other end of it, if you set a stretch goal, which we'll go into a little bit more, because you understand where you are from assessments and you're like, okay, well, if you want to achieve a sub 16 minute 5K by March, you've got 5 months to do that. Where am I at right now? Okay, I'm at here. How long can I sustain that pace for? Okay, it's actually unrealistic. Is it possible? Yes. But what sacrifice do I have to make? What cost does that come at to make that right, versus slipping that forward another 4 months and then making it all a lot more realistic and not burning myself out, not getting injured. But at the same time, if you set the bar high, like a stretch goal, then actually you're gonna shoot higher and you're gonna put more work in. But if it's too high, actually then there might be self-sabotage coming because you think it's unrealistic. So it's finding balance. So we'll talk more about A, B, and C goals, but the A is the stretch goal, like exceeding the expectations. Then there's the B goal, which is actually the goal. And then there's going to be a C goal, which is a little bit lower than what you wanted, but still good. And then that's a good base to then shoot for the B goal. So it's about finding balance. We see both people setting unrealistic goals and then beating themselves up when they don't hit it. And then we also see people not setting goals that are big enough for themselves due to limiting belief, fears, and whatever else. But when you sit down and have conversations with them, they set the bar higher. Yeah, which can shit them up a little bit because it's like, wow, all right. But no, like you set the stretch goal, you strive harder for it, and therefore you may fall short, but that's okay because you've exceeded what you wanted in the first place anyway.
Yeah, on top of that as well, this is where like reviewing previous performance and then kind of where you're at as well with the assessments, that gives you an idea as well as sort of previous races and whatnot. So, sitting down and going through, it's like, well, actually, I've applied myself for 6 months and this is the kind of progress that I've made, or maybe it's not as much as you wanted, but you might have decreased your 5 kilometer time by 1 to 2 minutes in 6 months. So then that gives you a baseline to go, well, yeah, this is how much effort I've put in. This is how much training I've done. Yeah, I had a stressful time or whatever it is. Like you may have had things that have come up in the way, or you might have had an uninterrupted training block. And it's like, well, this is actually quite a clear baseline. So my goal, if I took 2 minutes off in 6 months, then let's go for 3 minutes as my stretch goal for the next 6 months. So that's going to really push you. Ultimately, your goal might be 2.5 minutes. And then as a baseline, it could be for the C goal could be 2 minutes off. So you've got something which is pushing you and it is going to make you apply yourself. And the best way to do that would be to, in 6 months' time, have a race which is going to test that. And then 3 months before that could be, just to see exactly where you're at. So, these are the kind of things that we want to be penciling in line with your race season and things like that. But we'll touch on that in due course.
Yeah, for sure. And giving more context as well, like I said, like for my 5K early next year, I don't actually have any other races planned in that are significant like that. That is considered an A race, and that's 5 months from now. So I've basically got 5 months of uninterrupted training. Obviously, I'll take rest periods during that. Like the training is structured in such a way to build up to that, so that I'm peaking for that race. But it doesn't mean that you don't race during that training period, because the consideration we've got, and as we see in the UK and also other parts of the world like the States, winter's come in and it's an extremely challenging time to get out and train because of the weather. I remember wanting to do track sessions last year, and I get to the track and the track is frozen, so I couldn't use the track. And so there's things that we need to take into consideration as well. But what can we do? Well, if the track's frozen, can you do some form of cross country? Yeah, could you take it up in a cross country series or a trail running series? Or could you do a park run, or there are fun runs that you can do? But the key is here, you're not taking time off to perform maximally. You are putting these into the training calendar so that it can be fun. It can keep things interesting. And something that's really, really powerful is actually having people to show up for. So what we do in our part of the UK, every Sunday, we're going to meet and we're going to do a long run, because often that can be the most challenging thing for people to do. And then we're going to do an obstacle skills session and threshold thing. So it's a double day, but not super arduous. Why? It's fun. 2, it's with a group of people, which will get us out in the elements, which makes it easier rather than looking out the window and there's snow and rain and whatever else. And then you've got to run 90 minutes or 2 hours in that. Makes it a little bit easier if you're doing that with people as well. So there's various things that you can do to ensure that you can be consistent. But what I would say is look at what session you have potentially the most resistance around, and then find an event or something that really replaces that. And it doesn't mean you're doing that on a weekly basis. Maybe that's a monthly thing. Yeah, it could be a DECA event of some sort. Like if you have resistance against doing strength training, go and do like a DECA strong. Yeah, if you have resistance about doing like compromised running or functional fitness or an OCR session, maybe do a DECA fit. Yeah, maybe sign up for a high rocks or something like that to train for in the off season. Look at what you don't enjoy and look at what areas you need to develop in order to improve. But the real key is to include it within the off season period, training period. All right, don't be putting it in and then doing it as an extra, or putting it in as an A race and really prioritize to hit a PB in it, because that little bit too much intensity could lead to injury or being too much. And this isn't the period for that. Okay, so look at what your goal is, look at the areas you need to develop in order to achieve that goal, then find some fun stuff and put that into the training, but incorporate it into the training so that it just makes it a lot more fun and a lot more manageable. So cross country training, park runs, trail runs, fell races, other fun runs, Deca, high rocks, could be some OCR events over the winter period as well that you could attend. But just remember, you're not aiming to hit PBs in them. Okay, this isn't the period of time for that. Anything you want to add, Matt?
Yeah, so obviously you're speaking more for like the shorter races, but for those who are actually going to be doing longer races, you want to start off gradually and build up to that. So what I'm saying is kind of don't just go, okay, right, I need to get 5K, and then you've got a race a few months down the line, which may be, I don't know, half marathon or ultra marathon. So I'd say progressively build up to those so that you can get that volume in a way which is going to be gradual. Like you're going to have time to periodize your training, so increase that volume, then take moments of deload and then increase again. So rather than go, okay, I've seen a half marathon, I'm going to do this, and then you'll go down to trying to get a 5K speed effort in. We want to be like intent with the races and the training sessions that we're doing. So also don't be flicking between like long distance, short distance. Okay, we want to incorporate all of this specifically within your training as well. So yeah, do those baseline assessments to begin with, and then you've got something to be working on. Then you can be looking at, if it's going to be longer distance, then things like marathon pacing or whatever it is. So yeah, the main thing is like not just chopping and changing between the two because you see something that looks enjoyable or whatever. It's going to be like really focusing on what it is that you're looking to improve on, and slowly building that volume up as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, yeah. It's an opportunity to mix up the training as well, because obviously we need the conditioning specifically to what we're going to do. And if you're doing something like Matt's suggesting, which many of our guys actually do and very successfully. I mean, we've had for numerous years now top threes in UK National Series, Master Series. The teams come top three multiple years now in the UK OCR Series. And that's because the guys are applying what we're saying here and effectively. So actually, as they work through a very hard-hitting season of potentially 6 to 8 A races, they're still performing very well, even though they're fatiguing against some real big players in the sport. So, yeah, conditioning is absolutely key, and we want to keep conditioning up, but really we'll get more specific with the conditioning towards the precise event the closer we get to that. Obviously, if we're sharpening too soon, the intensity could be too much, and that could lead to physical or mental burnout. So there's other things we can do. I mean, we'll talk about this in another podcast, but it's looking at cross-training activities as well as fun races as well. So just mixing things up, because if you're doing the same runs every single week or the same training sessions every week, I kind of like that, because I find the simplicity of it really, really helps. But then every so often I'll need to change the session just to add a little bit more variety and to keep it interesting. But cross-training activities are really, really good. You can use different CV equipment. You can do different things. The most important thing is we're hitting the targets, the energy systems, in order to develop those particular areas to make progress in those areas of fitness. And then ultimately combining all of that together, which has to be done for OCR. You can't just be an extremely good runner and not be able to lift or carry or whatever. You need to be able to do all of these things. But that sharpening comes closer towards the end. All right. I know I've talked a lot about running. Matt's talked about longer distances, but Still need to work on the strength, still need to work on the mentality, still need to work on your nutrition, your sleep, your body composition to make sure the power to weight ratio is in the right place. But it doesn't need to be as extreme or as intense as it does the closer you get to the event. I remember going to a workshop with Ryan Atkinson, and everyone knows Ryan Atkinson, and spent a day with him doing some training, and was talking about his off season and really looking at what he does about 12 weeks out from a major composition. He's quite relaxed 12 weeks away from a competition. Although when he gets to 8 weeks, he's more conscious of what he's eating and how he's sleeping. 4 weeks out, he's really, really sharp and on point, like doesn't miss anything. Like his training's on point, his nutrition's on point, his sleep. And then a couple of weeks out from that, he's super, super focused. So yeah, important to not be super intense now, because you can lead to burnout. And bearing in mind, by the time you get to that competition, that's only the beginning of a competitive year as well. Cool.
And then, yeah, just one final thing to touch on as well, especially for those who are going to be doing like longer distance racing, is like trying to find a rate. Like some of your long training sessions are going to be long training sessions. Okay. If you want to do well, you need to get that volume in your legs. So, one of the things I'll suggest to a lot of the people I work with, and even for myself, for longer distance racing, I'll find something, a race, so that I can actually use as a training session. I'm not using it as a race. It is purely a long training session, but it's going to be under the conditions that I'm going to face. So there's going to be an element of like race day protocols that I can be implementing. So, what I'm going to trial out in terms of my warm-ups, in terms of the way that I show up to it. So it's almost like a mock race, but I'm going to go at either my zone 2 or add in a little bit of threshold at the end, kind of what I expect to do in the race conditions. However, it is purely a training run. So having the discipline, if you do have find an event that you can apply what it is you want to achieve within that training session. So that's all it is making sure that you've got something which is going to give you the motivation to get out and do that training session. Because I think one of my training runs at one point was like a 50k run. And that was purely just to get that in my legs. Now I still have plenty of time out from the main race, but I needed that one as a confidence booster. But if I went all out on that, then that was going to destroy me for 2, 3, 4 weeks afterwards. So it's using it purely to dial in race day conditions, my fueling, how I feel afterwards, my recovery. So yeah, they are really important to add in, especially for the days that you don't want to go and do a long training run. So yeah, incorporate them in, but be sparing with it as well, and purely only do what it is that the training session in mind.
Yeah, super, super important. Another thing that we get on an annual basis, because obviously there's a big chunk of time where people aren't doing OCR, and we get a lot of the team members having a little bit of fear because they're like, well, I haven't been doing OCR, so how do I test myself in regards to that? And it's quite a common thing. But what we say is, well, if your stats are improving, your strength is improving, your run times are improving, firstly, that's going to be a confidence booster because you've surpassed where you were previously. But still, that kind of leaves that gap, that little bit of an opening where we haven't actually been on obstacles for a period of time. So what we've done year in, year out for a good 4 years now, we didn't do it this year, but last year we done it really, really effectively. So how it'll work this year is I'll do my 5K event, and then 2 weeks later, I've got Spartan Mallorca, which is one of the Spanish races. And when we've done this in previous years, so 2024 as an example, I had that as the OCR race to get geared up for. Now, it was part of a series, but not anything that I was going for. We just done this week of mountain running with the community, done an OCR specific session full of skills, which built confidence. Then we took some rest, and then people done anywhere from 1 to 3 races on a Spartan Trifecta weekend. One of the team members completed a full trifecta, which is incredibly testing for Mallorca successfully. A number of other guys done multiple races that weekend and done really well in their age groups. 3 of us, despite this not being an A race weekend, it was just a pre-UK OCR season. 3 of us hit top 10 positions in the elite field, and all 3 of us hit podium in the retrospective age group categories. 2 of us getting first and second in one category, and then the other one winning the other category. And it wasn't even a race. So when you go and do that after a successful off-season period, then you know that you're ready to take on the OCR season. And 2 weeks after that, we had Titan Warrior, which is part of the UK OCR series, and all of the team done phenomenally in that as well. So we're suggesting all of these things so that you can be in the game for the long haul by structuring things in such a way that allows you to be consistent without burning out, without reaching injury, and do this year in, year out. Cool. I think that is about it, to be honest, before we move on to like actually planning the season and stuff like that, which we'll do in another episode. Is there anything else you feel like we want to go over, Matt?
No, it's just more of a reminder or revise at the end. Once you've reviewed your race season, like write down your weaknesses. So it could be 2 to 3 weaknesses. You don't want to overload, or you might have a few, but what are the ones that you need to be working on the most in the off season? And just choose 1 to 2 of those. And then with your strengths, what strengths have you got? Where can you improve those, or where can you keep at baseline? And then like the lessons that you've learned along the way as well. So it's like, whether it's your nutrition's not been good, or you're not sleeping well before the race, or whatever it is. So again, write these down and then actively implement those, because that's what's going to help you along as well. Like seeing physically, or like where you need to work on. Like it's going to be a game changer. The more that you focus on something, the more that you're able to really dial it in.
For sure. Yeah. And that's always a great place to start, because as humans, we have a bias towards what's not gone well, or negativity. But once you do that absolute reel of a list of things that didn't work, what you can do is then translate them into, okay, well, what's this showing me? What are the lessons? How do I need to improve? Where do I need to improve, and why? And that's another powerful thing, like why. And we'll go into that on planning the season, and really dive deep. And also we've got some episodes coming out with some of the team members, and we talk about the powerful reasons why, and why ultimately to have a goal, but actually understanding why the goal is truly a goal versus the surface layer stuff that we often believe, that we want things.
Yeah. Again, like find out within those weaknesses. It's like, well, translate that across the course. It's like, okay, I might be slower on the monkey bars, but how much time am I losing overall? Or is my speed the thing that's really slowing me down? So, translate that across and go, well, this could be 3 minutes, whereas this could be 10 or 15 minutes. And then you know exactly which is your main work on point. So, if it's like the balance beam, for example, you might take a minute to do that. That's in the grand scheme of things is not going to be as important as the run, which you're losing 10 minutes as well. So try and work out what it is time-wise that you're going to be losing on course, and then you can really sort of dial that in.
Really, really important point there, because talking about Mallorca, I think in 2 consecutive years, I've come off balance beam, and that happened to be right at the start of the race. And they had this awful penalty loop. So at the start of the race, you're running back down the hill past all the competitors, and they're running up and over the obstacle and past up the hill, and you're like, well, I've kind of blown it straight away in the start of the race. So yeah, look at the granular details. Like, how can I improve my balance? It's not just about improving the running. There could be something that's overlooked, but lo and behold, like that didn't work for me. So I put more work into my balance, and then I've improved my balance. So every experience is an opportunity for growth. And also in that moment as well, the way that we handle an obstacle failure is really, really important, because you've got two choices. You let that completely blow your performance out of the park, or you knuckle down. And what happened? I ended up winning that particular race in my category. So yeah, it bothered me. It fucking really bothered me when I'm watching like all these competitors run past. But I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? Yeah, I'm not just going to throw it out the window. Okay, so our psychology in those moments really, really gets tested. But I was only able to do that because I'd fucked up plenty of times before it. And not every single time I make a mistake is it perfect like that. Yeah, sometimes you can snowball a little bit. But yet again, it's all opportunities for growth if we see it that way. Yeah, and everything is a learning experience. So whatever's reflected back to you, use it. Use it to your advantage to keep getting better. And start thinking in terms of years. Where am I going to be next year? Where am I going to be the following year? And so on and so forth. And then just keep going at it and having some fun with the process as well. I think that's key. Have a lot of fun. Something we do that's fun is do the team races on the Spartan weekends, because it's just a lot of fun to get out there and have no expectations and play around on some obstacles and laugh a lot. So yeah, have balance, find balance, and yeah, you'll be in this game for the long term and enjoying it a lot more, rather than putting a bunch of pressure on yourself that completely takes away from the reason why you do it.
Yeah, it's a great way to end. Yeah, enjoy your training effectively as much as you can, because you're more likely to show up to it. And again, like, why do something if you're not going to enjoy it? So yeah, try and make it fun as where you can, because yeah, over the long term, if you look at volume in terms of the amount of training, yeah, if you're doing something you hate week in, week out, then yeah, you're going to procrastinate about it. You're not going to enjoy it. You can be like, why am I doing this? Well, yeah, not every single training session we're going to enjoy. However, at times, like, it's going to pay off. So the more that you can enjoy something, the better it is going to be for you.
Mm-hmm. I'll give a quick example of this. So last week I was intending to go to the track and do a threshold session on the track, but just due to certain reasons, I didn't manage to make it to the track. So I went to the gym and I was like, I don't know if I can be bothered to run on the treadmill for a certain allotted amount of time. And I couldn't. And then as soon as I got on the treadmill, there was resistance about being on the treadmill, because it's like, I'm going to have to warm up into it. It's a little bit different than I want to be doing it. Then my watch is telling me certain stats, and then the treadmill's telling me other stats. It's like, what's accurate, this or that? And you're trying to take the median between it. And then it's like, well, yeah, I need to spend at least 20 minutes at threshold pace in order to get some form of a benefit. That's what I wanted to do. But then I had resistance to doing 20 minutes. It's like, well, I've just warmed up. I'm 15 minutes in on the treadmill. The pace feels extremely fast because the treadmill is telling me this, and my watch is telling me this. My watch is telling me to go faster. The treadmill is saying I'm running at whatever pace. So it's like, what am I doing? What am I believing? I'm looking at my heart rate, and my heart rate's not going up, and I'm running really hard. So it's like all these things, all these barriers. But once I settled into the pace and just broke it down, it's like, all I need to do is 5 minutes. Just do the first 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes turned into 8 minutes turned into 12 turned into 15. And by the time I made it to 20, I was like, that wasn't actually that bad. So you can break it down into chunks, rather than going, oh, this isn't working and that's not working. I'm going to be on here forever and the stats are out of whack. It's like, ultimately what we want to be doing is getting the training stimulus to move us forward or prevent us from regressing in some way, shape or form. Was it a perfect session? No. Yeah, was I entirely happy with it? No. Did I take a shot? Did I take an action that's going to move me forward in some way, shape or form? Yes. Great. Tick in the box. Happy. So a lot of these things are the way that we view them. And often the harder we push, the harder we fall. So be kind to yourself, have fun, lay out the game plan, be flexible and adaptable to change at any time, do what you can, and see where that takes you over the coming years. Excelente. All right. Should we wrap it up?
Let's do it.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks for the value, and we'll be back again for planning the year ahead and goal setting and why. Sweet. Catch you later.
All the best. Take care.
That is it for today's episode of the Obstacle Dominator podcast. Thank you for listening. If you've gained value from this episode or any others, all we simply ask is you share that with one other person. This one simple share could be the breakthrough that they need to get unstuck and start making progress again, and support more athletes to become healthier, happier, stronger, and faster human beings. If you feel called, please leave a review, tap the stars, give us a rating, head over to YouTube and subscribe, or just simply follow the show. These simple action steps go such a long way in helping us reach more athletes over time, and would love for you to be part of that. Proximity is power. If you are an athlete that's ready to take your performance up a level, then join us over on the OCR School. This is a community where you can surround yourself with the right people as you learn and as you rise. Learn from athletes who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, getting results, body and mind, everyone from first-time finishers to podium winners and champions. Until next time, keep training hard, keep living prepared, keep dominating the obstacles in life and in competition.